playoffs. Lang Whitaker joins us, NBA TV, NBA.com. Good morning, Lang Whitaker. Welcome to 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio here in Albany.
Hey, how are you doing?
Thanks for a few minutes. Let's go ahead and start with the Knicks. What do you make of this team right now that still mathematically can make the playoffs? We know that's not going to happen. Should they tank this season down the stretch the rest of the way so they can actually get maybe a really nice draft pick, lottery pick, and move on from there?
I don't know if they should tank. I mean, part of the reason you have Jeff Hornacek there and Phil Jackson there is so you have some sort of system in place, and you have Phil keeps talking about and we've heard the players keep talking about the triangle and its importance. And I don't know if kind of veering away from that the last couple of weeks of the season helps anything. I mean, in a larger sense, the Eastern Conference isn't very tough right now, and a team like the Hawks can lose 7 games in a row and remain in 5th place in the conference in the middle of a playoff stretch. So I think a team like the Knicks, you're probably not going to make the playoffs. You're still alive, but I don't know if you're going to make the playoffs. And I feel like if you're the Knicks, you're trying to build something bigger here, and you're trying to put some sort of a structure in place that you can lean on and down the road, a system that works and that defines your franchise. And maybe this is the time where you stick to that system and you can take something from it going forward.
Certainly played well enough last night. That was actually one of their better offensive outputs with Porzingis playing well last night. Derrick Rose looked really good last night. He was a couple of moves last night, and we were just like, that's the player that they wanted from day one of this season. And then Carmelo was into it last night, played some defense, looked pretty good. The question is, like, is this team, is Derrick Rose going to be on this team next year? Is Carmelo Anthony going to be on this team next year? Those questions still to be answered.
I think Carmelo is. I think Derrick Rose is a more touchy subject for Knicks fans. The Derrick Rose you saw last night, sure, he was great. It's just that you don't see that every night. And I think you need consistency from your point guard. And Derrick Rose has made no secret of the fact that he's looking for a big contract and wants to get as much money as he can. And if you're the Knicks, I don't know if you want to invest that kind of money in Derrick Rose long term. So if I'm the Knicks, I look at this draft coming up, and there's a lot of really good point guards who might be available. Lonzo Ball might be one of those top couple of picks, and then even a guy like De'Aaron Fox might be a little further down, but he showed what he can do. And I think if you're the Knicks, if you're going forward and you're trying to turn the page and build something longer term, they kind of went all in last summer in getting Rose and Noah and all these guys, and it didn't work out. So maybe you go younger and kind of look for the future.
Lang, Chris Honorato here with you, man. Because you're in New York and I know you're at the Garden a bunch, can you think of a more dysfunctional relationship in professional sports as long as you've been around other than James Dolan and Phil Jackson? I mean, this thing has just gotten bizarre with the whole Ask Phil thing, and Dolan saying as bad as it's been, he's going to let Phil ride out his contract.
I mean, the one thing I think that it's interesting that if you work for James Dolan, he seems to be a pretty good boss to have. He seems like he lets you do your job. He gets out of the way, and maybe the right people haven't been in those jobs every time, but it seems like he'd be a pretty good boss to have. If you're Phil Jackson, I don't think Phil can complain about not being empowered to do his job, not having the money to do it. He's gotten to take this job and say, this is what I want to do, and we're going to, he hired a coach who's never been a coach in the NBA, and been able to draft who he wants and bring in the guys he wants. So I think if you're, from that standpoint, if you work for James Dolan, he seems like a pretty good boss to have. I just think the Knicks, it's a weird, the situation is weird because if you're the fans of the Knicks expect, seems like that you expect a quick fix, and that's not going to happen. Yeah. And it seems like over and over it gets to the point where it's like they can either take the long road, and it might not be as fruitful in the short term, or you can try to make the trade. You bring in someone, Stephon Marbury or Steve Francis or Derrick Rose or a player who is going to help you right away, and it never works out that way. I mean, you see these teams now that are the better teams in the NBA, Boston, Cleveland. Well, Cleveland's their own subject because LeBron came home, but Golden State, San Antonio. These are teams that are rebuilt and through the draft primarily, and have been able to add a lot of assets and acquire a lot of draft picks and turn that into something that stands the test of time. And the Knicks just never had the patience to do that. And I thought when Phil Jackson came in that he was going to buy them the time to do that. And I think that Porzingis being as good as he has kind of accelerated that timetable. And now they're kind of reaching that point again. You have to decide, are we going to build this thing with a strong foundation, or are we going to try and capitalize on where we are right now?
And the other problem is this whole triangle offense thing is making me crazy, but it is like that's the only thing they talk about 24/7. If you're a player in the New York Knicks organization, whoever's there now, whoever they're going to bring in, it doesn't make any difference. You better be buying into the triangle offense or don't go play for the Knicks.
Yeah. And look, that's the way that if you're going to go play for the San Antonio Spurs, you better buy into the pace and space offense. Or if you're going to play for the Warriors, you better be comfortable with Steph Curry having the ball in his hands all the time. And if you're going to play for the Knicks, you're going to run the triangle, and that's how it works. And you can debate whether or not that's the best offense in the NBA to use these days. I know people are, like you said, it makes you crazy. I don't really think it's that big of a stumbling block. I mean, I think if you had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green running the triangle offense, I bet they'd score a lot of points. I think really it's about getting the right players in there and being able to have quality players in that system.
Lang, let's talk a little bit about Cleveland. They are really struggling here. I mean, I heard a stat this morning. They're one of the worst. They are, in fact, the worst defensive team in the month of March. I mean, is this just something that they're in a bit of a funk right now, Cleveland, who got blown out last night by the Spurs, or if you're a Cleveland fan, are you concerned about the Cavs moving forward with the postseason right around the corner?
I'd be a little concerned. I mean, they're 5-5 in their last 10 games. They looked terrible against the Spurs last night. They just seemed kind of lifeless. Right after the second half started, they showed a little bit of spark, and you kind of thought, oh, well, maybe here it is. I kind of feel like they're the team that, coaches always warn you against trying to flip the switch. And they say, you can't just flip the switch. You have to be able to play the way you play all the time. And the Cavs are kind of, to me, the one team that can flip the switch. We know they have another level they can get to. And, maybe it takes being down 3-1 in the finals to find that fortitude as a group. But this is the same group that was down 3-1 in the finals. We know that they can reach another level that no other team in the NBA can get to. Now the question is, how do you unlock that level? And, maybe it takes losing the number one spot in the conference. Now they're behind Boston. And maybe they see that and they get a little worried and they start to turn it up down the stretch. They have a schedule down the stretch, I think, that pretty favorable. I mean, I'm looking at it now. They play at Chicago, then they play the Sixers, the Pacers, the Magic, one game against the Celtics, 2 against the Hawks, Heat, Raptors. So, I mean, they should, even if they're sleepwalking like they are now, they should be able to come out of that at least 500 or better. So I would still think that they're going to be in a pretty good spot heading into the postseason. It's just, defensively, can they find another level to get to? And I also think it's partly trying to, they've been without so many guys for such a large part of the season, and now these guys are coming back and getting healthy, and you're trying to kind of assimilate them back into the offense, and it's a little bit of a growing pains there.
Well, they're no longer the top team in the East right now, right? That belongs to the Boston Celtics. So, I mean, Boston has got to be a factor here down the stretch and into the postseason. How dangerous of a team are the Boston Celtics right now?
I kind of feel like Boston is a more dangerous regular season team than a postseason team. They're so well prepared. Brad Stevens does an incredible job every single night of getting those guys tuned in and ready to play. You hardly ever see them come out and just lay an egg. Like, you see that a lot around the NBA. I mean, Cleveland did it last night. You see it a lot around the NBA, and a lot of those are chalked up to being quote-unquote schedule losses, either if it's on a back-to-back or you've had 4 games in 5 nights or whatever. Sometimes it's just a part and parcel of being in the NBA is you don't come to play. But with Boston, that very rarely happens. That being said, in the playoffs, you play the same team 5, 6, 7 times in a row, and it's a lot easier to kind of see their tendencies. I think the game slows down a little bit in the postseason, and with Boston, other than Isaiah Thomas, to me, they still don't really have that other scorer who can consistently get them points. And I think, I mean, as good as they are in the regular season, I don't see them getting out of the Eastern Conference in the playoffs. I don't think they're better than Cleveland, and I kind of feel like Toronto might be a better, if Kyle Lowry's healthy, postseason team than Boston is.
Hey, Lang, we're seeing two guys at the offensive end do things maybe nobody's ever done before. The MVP race, is it a two-man race? And if it is, are you taking Westbrook or Harden?
I feel like it's a two-man race. I mean, it's funny because we're in this knee-jerk reactionary phase now where after the game last night, everyone might be saying, hey, Kawhi needs to be talked about. I mean, LeBron should be in that conversation. Isaiah Thomas is probably in that conversation too. There's a lot of guys. If he hadn't gotten hurt, Kevin Durant would probably be in that conversation. But to me, it's Harden and Westbrook are the two guys. And as brilliant as Harden has been all season, to me, Westbrook is still more valuable to his team and does more things for that team than Harden does for the Rockets. And that's saying, I mean, Harden's scoring 30 points and leading the league in assists, and it's been an incredible player all season. But Westbrook, I think the triple doubles he's given you every single night, the effort he gives every night, the way he scored, 12 of their last 14 last night to win the game. Almost every single night he plays at a level no one else in the league plays at. And to me, Westbrook is still the leader in the race. But I can't remember there ever being an MVP race this tight.
Yeah.
With so many guys who, not only guys you can talk about, but guys who are genuinely worthy of being in that discussion and making it night after night. It kind of swings back and forth, and who I don't know who's going to win this thing at the end of the season, but there's still a couple weeks left. We'll see what happens, I guess, these last few weeks.
Lang Whitaker, NBATV, NBA.com reporter. You did a phenomenal job. We always appreciate a few minutes popping on here with Big Board Sports in Albany, and I'm sure we'll talk to you down the road as the playoffs are ready to roll, Lang.
Sounds good, guys.
Go Braves, man. You knew I was getting that in. Thanks, Lang.
Perfect.